You're watching The Chief Tech, and in this video we're going to be going over hosting your own local NuGet feed. So a quick overview of what we're going to be covering in this video. We're going to start out by creating some demo projects. This will consist of 3 main projects. The first project will be the web app. This will be an ASP.NET MVC web application, and we'll be using this web application to consume our NuGet feed. We'll then be creating a shared class library project, and inside this class library we'll just have a simple method which will take in a string and pass back a formatted string, and it'll be a public method, and we'll be packaging this shared class library and pushing it out to our local NuGet feed and then importing it later on into our web application. The last of the projects will be the test project. We'll create this as part of the shared class library solution, and we'll just be using this to test our public method. Once we're done with the initial setup, then we're going to move on to the NuGet package management and setup. We'll be using the command line tools initially, and later on we'll be refactoring this to automate the process. So the first command line command we're going to be looking at is the pack command, and we'll be using this to create a NuGet package from our shared class library project. We'll then look at the push command, which will take our package that was created and push it to our local directory. Then we need to move on to configuring Visual Studio to expose the local NuGet feed so that we are able to use the package management console as well as the package manager inside Visual Studio to install and update our local NuGet feed packages. Finally, we're going to do a little bit of testing. We're going to walk through the process of installing the feed and updating the feed. And finally, we'll look at a bit of refactoring, whereby we'll improve the workflow by automating the process of the packaging and pushing and moving away from using the command line and actually putting this into the post-build events of the shared class library project. Alright, so with that, let's begin. Right, the first thing we're going to be doing is creating a new ASP.NET MVC application. We'll give it a name of the web app. When creating this project, you probably just want to keep it at a minimum for the sample purposes. So I'll change the authentication mode to no authentication, and let's keep it relatively simple. Alright, so this web project is now created, and before we carry on, just want to clean up the default template just to bring it a bit more in line with the sample project description. So first thing I'm going to do on the home page is get rid of the Jumbotron div and then change the page title. The next thing I want to do is just remove the 2 columns and then change the Bootstrap grid column layout from 4 to 12, and then again just change the page title and remove some of the default text. Then onto the layout template, just again change the default page title and then get rid of some of the menu items that we're not going to be needing, and change the application name to the web app. And we'll just change it in the footer as well. Okay, so let's give it a test run, and everything looks like it's working fine. Okay, the next step in setting up the sample application is going to be creating a new application as a class library, and we'll call it the shared library. And this library will be the one that we share within our NuGet packages. So again, we'll just do a little bit of cleanup. We'll change the default class name to shared class. This is the class that we'll instantiate inside the projects that utilize this library. Inside this shared class, what I'm going to do is create a simple method, and this method will be called say my name, taking in a string parameter called the name, and then returning back a string which will contain the name that was passed into it. Okay, so now that we have our method returning the string, we're going to add a new test project just to test out any changes that we make within our library so that we can validate those and then ensure that we're getting the same results inside the applications that are using the library. So once our test project is created and added to the same shared library solution, we'll just create the first test class, and then again another simple method to test out our say my name method. So in this method we're just going to set up some defaults, and the next step would be to actually reference the library. So here we're going to reference the project from within the solution as opposed to referencing it via nuget. Okay, so now we'll instantiate the shared class and then call it and pass in our default parameter. And once we have that result, we'll just assert that it's equal to what we're expecting. Okay, so now we've got our assertion in place. We can run the test. Right, the test passed, so on to the next step. We're going to go ahead now and package up our project into the nuget package. So let's first take the path to our project file and then open up a new command window and just change directory to the root directory of our project. Now we're going to type in the nuget pack command, and the first parameter of that is the name of our project. You'll see that once we've run the project, the nuget package will be generated into the same directory that we've run the command from. The next thing I want to do is just go and create a local directory for our nuget packages to be published into. Again, in the command window, let's now run the nuget push command. We'll now pass in the name of the package that we created earlier, and then we'll just get the path of the local nuget directory that we created, and we'll pass that in as the source parameter. Running that now, we'll just double check that the package has been pushed correctly into the correct directory. So now in Visual Studio, what we want to do is we want to configure our new local nuget package feed. So under Tools and Package Manager, we go into the package sources and add in a new package source. Just give it a name. I'm just going to name it the same as I have the local directory, and then get the exact path to the local directory, copy that in, and then paste that into the source property. I'll OK that now, and we should have that available to us. So what I'm going to do now is adding in the NuGet packages through the Manage NuGet Packager window. You'll see the package source is available now in the drop-down list, and if we browse that, we'll see the latest version of the library there. I'm now going to install that. And we can see the green tick indicating that it's been installed. And if we check the references, we'll see the DLL assembly has been added in. Also in the packages.config file, you'll see the correct version has been included. First thing we're going to do now is go and set up the home page to allow us to test with our new NuGet package. And using the Bootstrap styling, I'm going to add in a form, and we'll give that a class of the form group, and now add in an input text box, and we'll give that a class of form control, and then we'll give it an ID and a name property of the name. Now what I'll do is I'll add in a label, and we'll allocate that label to be associated to the name input box. And then we'll add in a submit button with a value of say my name. And we'll give it a class of button primary. Alright, now the action, we're going to point it to the index method of the home controller. And what I want to do first is just add in a form view model. And we'll give the form view model a property called the name. Now inside our index method, we'll pass in the name coming into from the form into the say my name method. And now we'll instantiate a new view model, and let's actually change the form view model to have a property called result, and then we'll pass in the result of the say my name method into that result property of the form view model, and then we'll return that model back to the view. Okay, back on the form now, what we are going to do is we're just going to check to see if the model that we're expecting back exists, which means that we're now dealing with the form post. So if the view model is not null, we will just display an alert div displaying the result text. Okay, let's run that now. Okay, that shouldn't be displaying, so let's go back to see what the problem is. Okay, in the index controller, we just need to invert this is null or empty check. We'll invert that and run it again. Okay, we're not seeing the alert. Type in a name, call the method, and there we go. The name displays as expected. Before we move on, I just want to make some small changes to the layout of the form just to improve the look a bit. So I'm just using the Bootstrap grid classes. I'm just going to add some spacing in and add the button into its own form group inside a div that we can set an offset to, and then give the button itself a column to sit in. And then I just want to quickly add the control label class to the name. And then let's run it and test it out again. So enter the name, say my name, yep, working as expected. So let's close that now, and we can move on to the shared class library update. So what I want to do here now is just create a failing test whereby I'll make an expected change to the resultant string. We'll just add in the text congratulations, and now we'll run that test. should expect a failing test. We've got a failing test. So let's go correct that now in the shared class library and add in the new string and test it out again. Okay, that's still failing. Okay, we've got a missing exclamation mark. Add that in, run the test, test passes. So now before we go ahead and recreate the NuGet package, it's important to note that you must update the assembly version, else the project looking for any updates won't recognize the update. Even though the assembly's changed, without a version number change, it's not going to identify it as a new version, so it won't update itself. So in the assembly info class under properties, I'm just going to increment the version number by 1. We'll build that now, and then now we'll open up a command window and cd into the root of our shared library class and run the nuget pack method, passing in the project name. Okay, that's run now. We should see that generated into our root. There we go, with the correct version number. So now what we want to do is just copy that name and then run the nuget push command, passing in the name of the package and the source of our local nuget directory. Right, that's run correctly now. Let's check that it's there. Okay, it's there. And you can see it hasn't changed the existing one. It's created a new one with the correct version number. So let's jump back now into the web project and go to Manage NuGet. Before we add the NuGet package, let's just make sure that even though we've changed the assembly, there's no updates in our web project. So let's run it. You can see that it's acting as expected. So now let's go and manage NuGet package. And you can see that we've got the correct package source selected, and we've got an indicator showing us that there's one update available. I'll run that. It's going to prompt us to update the NuGet package file because it's now incremented the version number. So let's go ahead and run it to the test, put in the name, say my name, and there we go. We're seeing congratulations as expected. Now we don't want to have to run our NuGet builds commands every time we update our shared library project. So there is an easier way to do that, and that's what we're going to do now. So let's jump back over to the shared library class and double click on the properties section to open up the properties window for the shared library. And then under build events, click on the edit post build. Now for now, we're going to just run it always because we haven't made any changes and we want to test out these scripts. And once that window is open, let's type in the NuGet pack line. However, this time, instead of passing in a path to the project, because we are already in that project, Visual Studio has some variables that are made available to the post build event. And here we're going to use the project path variable to automatically input the path to the project file. Now the next line, we want to add the NuGet push command. Now before we would type in the name of the NuGet package that was just built and the version number. But again, we don't want to have a process every time we make a change to come in here and update the version number. So we want to use another variable passed into the post build event, and this time it will be the version number. However, unfortunately, this isn't as simple as it seems. So we're going to have to make a few modifications to our project file in order to get the version number property populated. So here the source will be the path to our local NuGet directory. and because we've set always to the post build event, it's running now, and as you can see, we're getting an error. So let's go ahead and make those changes to the project file. What we need to do first is unload the project. Once the project's unloaded, let's click on edit the project file, and I've got some source code here that I will copy in. The first update we'll make is adding in this target element, which is specifying the post build macro, which we're going to need to populate the version number. And the second part we're going to add into the property group, and this will just be the dependency on running this macro before the post build event occurs. So now that that's done, let's reload the project and rebuild it. And we're now building without any errors. And you can see here in the local nuget directory, we've got the new nuget package. So I'm going to make another change to our test. And this time I'm just going to change it back to what it originally was. So now that I've changed it and I've built, should we expect to see the new nuget package built? Well, the answer is yes. However, you'll see that we don't see it, and that's because we haven't updated the assembly version number. So let's go ahead and do that. Right, we'll increment that again, build it, run the test passes, and now we'll see that the nuget package is available. So in the web project, going to manage nuget packages, we'll see the update is there, ready. We'll update that. That installs the update. And now let's test it out. Let's type in a name, and there we go, back to the original result.